Before we start the video, allow me to try to hypnotize you. Now don't worry, I'm not going to make you do anything stupid. I just want to try a few things to see if I can trick your brain. Now the first thing I want you to do is hold up your fingers just like this and relax as much as you can. Focus on the tips of your fingers and imagine that they're magnets and they're pulling closer and closer together. The more you relax and the more you focus, the more you'll realize how hard it is to keep them apart until eventually they're touching. My name is Noah Sokolsky, and you're watching Pinpoint here on deet-doe Productions. Noah, that trick was stupid. It didn't even work on me. Okay, but it was just... Listen, I know, hypnosis seems like it's just a dumb party trick, but maybe there's something scientific about it. In order to figure this all out, let's go back to the beginning of hypnosis and its history. Have you ever heard of the word mesmerize? Well, that term actually comes from a person in the 1700s named Franz Mesmer. Mesmer believed that all living things had something that flowed through them, some sort of life essence that could be balanced or unbalanced. And when a subject was in balance, they would feel happy and everything would be great. But if a subject was out of balance, psychological and physical problems would ensue. Mesmer believed that he could fix these imbalances by bringing people into dimly lit rooms, playing ambient music, and having them focus on waving and flowing objects. So was there any science behind Mesmer's methods? Well, patients did feel better after going through his treatment. However, his work was discredited by many respectable scientists, of which include Benjamin Franklin. After being discredited, Mesmer's methods were basically untouched. That is until recent times. Scientists have discovered a new method of healing called clinical hypnosis. Unlike Mesmer's methods, clinical hypnosis is backed in fact. Scientists actually conducted studies on people who went through clinical hypnosis, and they found that brain waves were emitted that proved that they were more visual and had more attention after going under clinical hypnosis. So what does this mean? Well, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, blah blah blah. Scientists have developed a new therapy called hypnotherapy, in which patients are able to break habits that they've had over a long period of time through the process of highly relaxed, high-focused hypnosis. So why does it take relaxation and high focus to fix something like bad habits? There are two theories that try to explain why this process makes your brain able to do things that it normally couldn't. One of those theories is called the altered state theory, and this says that when a person is under hypnosis, their brain goes through an alternate state of being, similar to when a person is in sleep. Similar to when a person is sleeping. And in this altered state, scientists theorize that it's easier to manipulate the inner workings of your brain in order to break bad habits and do other things. Another theory, called the no state theory, suggests that the brain is fully aware that it's being hypnotized and is simply playing along. Now hold on, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds exactly what Mesmer was doing. Mesmer seemed to be pretending that his subjects and his science actually made sense, when in reality it wasn't doing anything. But the scientists this time have the proof with the form of brainwaves. So, does this theory mean to say that the brain is doing all of these things simply by believing it can? The idea of your brain being tricked is no... what do I say? The idea of your brain playing tricks on you is not new. In fact, most pharmaceutical companies take advantage of this brain malfunction to test the effectiveness of their medicine. This process is called the placebo effect. In 1996, the placebo effect was proven true when 50 patients were gathered to try and test a new medicine called trivaricane. What they didn't know was that trivaricane wasn't a medicine at all. In fact, it had no healing properties whatsoever. The scientists marketed trivaricane as some sort of painkiller, but, like I said, it had no pain-relieving properties. Subjects were then given pain stimulus, one time without trivaricane and one time with trivaricane. Subjects then concluded that they felt much less pain when they took trivaricane versus when they didn't take trivaricane. But that doesn't make any sense, because trivaricane wasn't even a painkiller. So what happened here? Were the patients just lying? Well, not necessarily. They were most likely under the effect of the placebo effect. Have you ever heard of the phrase mind over matter? Well, this is something that can actually happen. It's scientifically proven that if your brain thinks that something will happen, it will make it occur within the body. For instance, your brain can trick itself into curing asthma, some heart diseases, and even severe pain, like our instance with chivericane. Because of this scientific discovery, many pharmaceutical companies test their medicine by giving some patients the real medicine and some patients a placebo. If the people with the real medicine feel significantly better than those with the placebo, then the pharmaceutical company can conclude that their medicine actually works. However, on the other hand, if people with the placebo feel better or the same as the people who take the medicine, then they can conclude that the medicine doesn't do its job correctly. Now, despite all the evidence that the placebo effect works, scientists are still trying to figure out why we do this. However, today, I think I may have found the answer. Optical illusions may be at the heart of this mystery. Now think about it. Optical illusions trick your brain the same way that the placebo effect and hypnosis do. Let's take a look at this cat going down the stairs, for example. Now hold on. Is this cat going down the stairs or up the stairs? Or what about this image? Do things appear to be moving in your peripheries? How about this one? Do you see the lines curving outwards, sort of like an ellipsoid? Turns out that these lines are completely parallel. In fact, this image right here is crucial to explaining what exactly happens when your brain sees an optical illusion. I'll leave this explanation up to Mark Changazi, a cognitive scientist.
So let's look at one of the illusions here. This is a stand-in for many kinds of illusions that are explained by this hypothesis. I'm just going to walk through it for this particular one. As usual in these things, these two lines are in fact parallel, but you perceive them to bow outwards at their centers. They're at the center where those radial lines are, it's wider in your visual field than the parts above and below. And this is remarkable because it's a remarkably simple stimulus. It's just a bunch of straight lines. Why should one of the most complicated objects in the universe be unable to render this incredibly simple image? Well, what might this mean to your brain? And what your brain is going to think this is not some lines on a page. Your brain has evolved to handle the kinds of natural stimuli that it encounters in real life. So when does the brain encounter stimuli like this? When you move forward, you get optic flow, flowing outwards in your visual field, like when the Enterprise goes into warp. All of these objects flow outwards, and they leave trails or blur lines on your retina. They're activating mini neurons all in a row. So this is a version of what happens in real life, and this is another version of what happens in real life all the time. In fact, cartoonists know about this. They put these blur lines in their cartoons, and it means to your brain motion.
So it appears as though optical illusions play on what you see already. You may see something familiar, and your brain fills in the gaps itself. This is due to the fact that your brain is kind of slow. In fact, it takes about 1/10 of a second for light to go through your eye and into your brain and back out to be processed. Now this may seem fast, but in reality it means that the world around you is about 10% faster than you can see. Now lucky for you, your brain has ways to combat this. Your brain is too slow to process the world around it, so it fills in the gaps where it needs it, and is able to process things that sometimes aren't necessarily there. This idea is known as top-down processing. Now normally you go throughout your day using bottom-up processing. For example, you may hear the entertainer, and you'll make the assumption that the ice cream truck is going by. In this case, you hear a stimulus, and it goes through your brain to be processed, and you're able to come up with an outcome. Bottom-up processing has a shy cousin in the form of top-down processing. Top-down processing comes into play when you need to make sense of something that wouldn't normally make sense. Particularly, we like to make sense of things using continuity, which means we like to pick up on patterns and use that given knowledge to apply it to other situations. Now, evolutionarily, pattern recognizing is very important. Let's say that you're in a scenario where you are a prehistoric human and you have the ability to see patterns. And let's say you have a counterpart named Dave. One day you and Dave are walking into the woods and you come across a plant and each of you gets pricked by its poisonous thorn. Both of you get very sick and almost die, but both of you survive. Later on, you're walking down in the woods again and you notice the plant that pricked you. Because of your developed brain, you're able to recognize that it's a pattern that these plants are poisonous and could kill you. However, Dave doesn't exactly recognize that because he doesn't have that process in his head. He gets pricked by the plant again and dies. Now you go on to make babies and pass on your pattern recognizing genes to the next generation. And they go on to live on and give their genes to the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation, and so on, until our minds are developed enough to be able to sense patterns all over the place and put them in our lives where needed. Because of this gene in our heads, we love patterns. Now, if something doesn't quite add up, we like to make it so that it does add up. So we take all these patterns that we have existing in our heads and apply them to that situation. In fact, our brain makes us physically perceive it, thus top-down processing. Now let's apply top-down processing to the illusions that I showed you before. Let's bring it back to the cat. When I told you that this cat was going down the stairs, your brain recognized the pattern and believed that the cat was going down the stairs. So what it did was it made your eyes see what it would normally see if a cat was going down the stairs. But then when I suggested that the cat may not be going down the stairs, your brain freaked out a little and maybe saw both images. This logic can also be applied to the image over here. Your brain sees the lines going outward as motion blur and assumes that you're moving based on the patterns of what motion blur looks like in real life. After it assumes that you're moving, it sees the two parallel lines in the center as some sort of opening and fills in information that it remembers as you would going through, say, an open door. When you approach an open door, the sides appear to bow outward, and that's what's happening in this optical illusion. Top-down processing is a very good way to explain why optical illusions work. But let's expand upon that. What about hypnosis? Well, like I said, there's a theory called the no-state theory, which states that the brain is fully aware of the treatment that it's undergoing, and it's just faking the process in order to make the patient feel like what it's going through is working. Now, a lot of scientists discredit this theory because there's physical evidence that the brain actually produces specific brain waves that affect the way the patient is thinking. Now, I like to propose that this person is going through top-down processing. The person undergoing hypnosis knows the context of hypnosis. They've seen the act where people are made to look like chickens or made to do other stupid things. And also, the idea that the scientist is making them do these things all the more convinces them that the process they're going through is indeed accurate. Your brain then fills in the gaps of hypnosis and makes your body more relaxed, more focused, and more susceptible to suggestion. This process also explains the placebo effect. When patients are given a fake medicine, they perceive it as a real medicine. So the brain fills in the gaps, and suddenly patients start to feel better, even though they were given fake medicine. We also see top-down processing at work in some cases of multiple personality disorder. With multiple personality disorder, the same person could feel like they are actually multiple different people. And in some very rare cases, some of these other people within the same person can do things that the real person can't. For example, one person may believe that they can run a marathon as one of their personalities, and that personality can, whereas another personality might not be able to. This is top-down processing at work. The person believes that they can do it, so the brain makes them do it. All this shows about how much believing in yourself can actually have an effect on you. So really, mind over matter is a scientific term. However, it's not quite accurate. I prefer top-down processing and pattern recognition over bottom-up processing and the physical world. It's got a nice ring to it. Thanks for watching Pinpoint. My name is Noah Sokolsky, and I'll see you next time here on deet-doe Productions.